The first time I died, Sloane Whitaker was wearing my name on a lanyard around her neck, not literally. The laminated badge clipped to her cream cashmere coat said Sloane Whitaker, Team Lead, Lakefront University, but the wildfire prediction system listed beneath it was mine, the code was mine, the field tests were mine. Even the green and gold map on the cover had been drawn from data I had collected while sleeping in a truck outside California's Dixie Fire burn scar. Sloane had taken all of it. My boyfriend had helped her, and at 12,000 feet above Lake Erie, while ice thickened over the left wing of her father's private plane, they learned there are some things money cannot rename, it's only turbulence, Noah Grant said. His fingers were locked around Sloane's hand. He had spent 3 years telling me he hated public displays of affection. Apparently that rule applied only when the woman beside him was me. The cabin pitched hard enough to throw an equipment case against the bulkhead. A warning tone screamed from the cockpit. One of the freshmen began praying. Sloane's live-stream smile had vanished, but my competition badge still hung from her neck, because she had taken that 30 minutes earlier. On the runway at Burke Lakefront Airport, I had shown them the maintenance photograph on my phone. The left de-icing boot had split near the leading edge. The repair sticker in the logbook had no mechanic certificate number. Freezing rain was spreading east from Sandusky. I had begged them to stay on the ground. Sloane had turned her camera toward me. This is what professional jealousy looks like, she had told her followers. Maya couldn't handle being part of a team, so now she's inventing an aviation emergency. Noah had pulled me aside and squeezed my arm until his thumbnail left a crescent in my skin. Get on the plane, he whispered. If you make us miss Boston, I'll tell Dean Talbot you stole the grant money. I should have walked away. Instead, I looked at the 4 younger students who had trusted me when I told them the charter was safe 2 weeks earlier. I boarded because I thought staying might help them, because some part of me still believed Noah would not destroy me completely, because women like me are trained to confuse self-sacrifice with goodness until the distinction kills us. The distinction killed me at 10:43 that morning. The left wing dropped, the cabin rolled. Oxygen masks fell, but only 3 deployed. Noah grabbed the nearest one and pressed it over Sloane's mouth. I stared at him across the aisle. He saw me. For one terrible second, I watched him decide, then he turned his body away. Sloane lifted the mask long enough to speak. Her voice shook, but the smile she gave me was still vicious. At least they'll remember it as my project. The windows filled with white metal screamed. Something struck the back of my skull, and the world went black before we hit the frozen marsh. Then Noah's voice said, Maya, wake up, I need your password. I opened my eyes. My cheek was pressed against a keyboard. The engineering lab smelled of burnt coffee, solder, and the lemon cleaner the night custodian used on the counters. Rain tapped softly against the windows. My laptop clock read 1:17 a.m., 5 days before the crash. Noah stood behind me, alive and whole. Both his legs were there. His dark hair was damp from the spring sleet outside, and the university quarter zip I had given him for Christmas was zipped to his throat. Your password, he repeated. The competition portal logged me out. On my phone, a message from Sloane glowed. Remember to upload the complete model tonight. We're a team, Maya, don't be selfish. I touched the back of my head. No blood, no crushed metal, no freezing air tearing through a broken fuselage. My hand began to tremble. Noah mistook it for exhaustion and smiled in the patient, superior way he used when he wanted something. Come on, you trust me, don't you? In my first life, I had given him access to my laptop because he managed the team submissions. I had gone home at 2 in the morning and slept for 4 hours. By sunrise, he had copied my source code, changed the recovery email on the competition account, and sent Sloane a file labeled MAYA_final. This time, I smiled back. Of course I do. I typed a password into the portal. It was not my university password. It was the temporary password for a duplicate account I had created months earlier to test the interface. Noah leaned close enough that I could smell peppermint on his breath. Thanks, babe. He kissed the top of my head and carried my spare laptop to the other side of the lab. I watched him plug in a silver flash drive. My fear became very still. Revenge, I discovered, did not arrive like fire. It arrived like ice, clear, quiet, and strong enough to carry weight. I turned back to my real computer and opened a clean document. At the top, I wrote, Invention Disclosure, Embertrace Autonomous Wildfire Propagation System. Below it, I typed my name, only my name. By dawn, I had exported every Git commit from the private repository. The earliest dated back 14 months, 6 months before Sloane joined the project. I downloaded laboratory access logs showing I had run every overnight hardware test. I preserved emails from Professor Lena Ortiz discussing calibration errors that only the two of us understood. At 6:02 a.m., I sent the complete package to Lakefront University's Technology Transfer Office and requested an emergency appointment. At 6:11, I began a provisional patent application. At 6:26, I reset the password on the Real Competition account and enabled a hardware security key. Then I created the file Sloan had asked for. It looked perfect. The dashboard opened, the maps moved, the simulation produced a dramatic wall of red advancing across Northern California. Anyone watching a rehearsed presentation would think it was the finished system, but the model was 3 versions old. The wind vector correction module was missing. The performance figures were from an expired synthetic data license and carried an invisible rights management marker. I left my usual variable names in the code: Mercer, Ashland, and Juniper, the 3 streets where I had lived as a child. Finally, I added a line in a buried test comment: if you understand this system, explain why the flame front curves east at minute 17. I uploaded the folder to the shared drive. Noah's phone chimed across the room. He glanced at the screen, his face brightened. 2 seconds later, Sloan replied, "Finally, see you at rehearsal." I closed my laptop. "Where are you going?" Noah asked. "Home, I have a flight to prepare for." He grinned because he thought he knew which one. I let him. 000 Lakefront University was fictional only in the way institutions like to pretend they are unique. Its red brick campus occupied 40 landscaped acres east of downtown Cleveland. Its brochures promised integrity, innovation, and service. Its trustees preferred donations large enough to put surnames on buildings. The Whitaker Center for Entrepreneurship stood at the center of campus. Sloan's grandfather had paid for it. At 9 that morning, she waited for me in a glass conference room on its top floor. Her blonde hair fell in immaculate waves over a camel coat. 2 student assistants adjusted a ring light while she practiced the opening of our presentation. Every year, wildfires destroy lives because existing prediction tools are too slow, she said. I asked myself a simple question: what if technology could see the danger before we could? She had never asked herself that question, had asked it at 17, after my mother's mobile home nearly burned outside Paradise, California. We had evacuated with 2 backpacks and a cat carrier. For 3 hours, emergency maps had shown the fire moving away from our road while wind pushed embers toward us. That failure became Ember Trace. Sloan saw me through the glass and smiled without warmth. There she is, our coder, not inventor, not co-founder. Coder. Noah sat beside her with my flash drive plugged into his tablet. Professor Ortiz was absent. Sloan had scheduled the rehearsal during her faculty meeting and claimed it was the only time the videographer could attend. "Let's run it from the top," Noah said. I placed my notebook on the table. My phone, recording, lay beneath it. Sloan delivered my childhood story as if it belonged to her. In her version, she had watched wildfires threaten a family property in Napa. She described staying up all night to design the original algorithm. Then she clicked the demonstration. The decoy dashboard opened. I pretended to be surprised. "Why does the title page list only Sloan?" Noah did not look at me. "Branding decision." "And why am I not listed as an inventor?" Sloan sighed as if I had interrupted her over punctuation. "Maya, investors don't want a committee. They want one clear founder. You joined the project in October. I transformed it in October. You changed the font." One of the student assistants coughed to hide a laugh. Sloan's expression hardened. Noah reached for my hand. I moved it before he could touch me. "We talked about this," he said. "No, you told me publicity would be easier if Sloan led the pitch. You never said you would remove my authorship." "It's temporary," he said. "Once we secure funding, the company can issue you equity." "How much?" He hesitated. Sloan answered, 5%. I let the silence sit. "You want to give me 5% of my own invention?" "I want to give you an opportunity," she snapped. "Do you know how many engineers can write code? I have the network, the media presence, and the capital. Without me, Ember Trace is a sad class project attached to your sad childhood." There it was, clear, cruel, and recorded. In my first life, I had thrown a glass of water at her. The video began after the insult and captured only my reaction. By lunchtime, the campus gossip account had posted Maya Bennett attacks team leader, Dean Talbot placed me on interim suspension. This time, I lowered my eyes. "You're right." Sloan blinked. Noah stared at me. I pushed the tablet toward her. "You should lead." Her suspicion lasted 3 seconds. Vanity defeated it. "I'm glad you're finally being rational. I only have one request. Use the version I uploaded last night. I fixed the visual lag." Obviously, Noah relaxed. Under the table, he texted someone. My watch mirrored the notification from our linked devices. She bought it. Stop worrying. Sloane's reply appeared. I told you she always folds. I almost laughed. Instead, I stood. I have a meeting. With whom? Noah asked too quickly. Financial aid. Some of us don't have a family building to borrow. Sloane rolled her eyes. I left them rehearsing an answer to a question the decoy model could not survive. The technology transfer office occupied 2 beige rooms behind the medical library. Dr. Priya Shah, the university's associate director for intellectual property, listened. Without interrupting while I explained the project, I did not mention rebirth, death, or a plane falling through white sky. I showed her evidence. She examined the commits, access records, and draft paper. Then she opened the competition portal on her computer. This submission says Ms. Whitaker is the sole inventor. I didn't authorize that. The electronic certification was submitted from your account. Check the login location. She did. The session had originated from Noah's apartment building at 2:43 that morning, while my campus card record placed me inside the engineering lab. Dr. Shah's face changed. Do you believe your credentials were used without permission? Yes. Then this is no longer a disagreement over credit. She called Information Security and the Office of Research Integrity. I signed an affidavit. A technician imaged my laptop and preserved the server logs. Dr. Shah helped me file the provisional patent through outside counsel, with Lakefront University listed according to its policy and me listed as the inventor. At noon, the patent filing receipt arrived. I read my name 3 times. In my first life, I had spent my final days begging people to believe the truth. This time, the truth had a filing number, 000. The plane appeared in my memory whenever I closed my eyes. N421WT, a 12-seat Beechcraft King Air owned through Whitaker Aviation Holdings and operated by North Coast Executive Charter, white fuselage, navy stripe, gold tail. In my first life, I had found the damaged de-icing boot by accident. During boarding, a baggage handler had dropped my case. When I bent to help, I saw a jagged split along the left wing's black pneumatic surface. The mechanic taped a temporary red notice over the maintenance panel, then removed it after Noah spoke to him. After my rebirth, I did not need to remember every technical detail. I needed only enough to make professionals look. At the engineering library, I searched Public Federal Aviation Administration records. The registration matched. North Coast held a Part 135 certificate, but the aircraft had recently shifted between personal and charter use. A pilot discussion board mentioned recurring icing control issues on an aircraft with the same tail number. That was not proof, so I kept digging. The breakthrough came from Noah. He had once asked me to organize receipts for the competition grant. In our shared finance folder sat an invoice from Aero Shield Maintenance, left wing de-ice boot replacement. Parts ordered, aircraft not released for known icing. The invoice was dated 3 weeks earlier. Attached to it was an email from North Coast's owner, Calvin Rusk. We can sign the inspection after Boston. Tell Grant the patch will hold unless they get real ice. Noah had replied, Sloane cannot miss the national final. Her father expects this handled. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped moving. They had known. They had known before I ever found the split. I downloaded the files, preserved their metadata, and forwarded them to a new attorney, Emily Cho, whom Dr. Shah recommended. Then I submitted factual reports through the FAA hotline and to the Cleveland Flight Standards District Office. I sent the invoice to Lakefront's Risk Management Director, the university's travel office, the competition organizer, and the aircraft's listed insurer. I wrote nothing dramatic. Aircraft N421WT is scheduled to transport Lakefront University students from Cleveland to Massachusetts on Friday. Attached records indicate an unresolved left wing de-icing defect and a representation that the aircraft may be operated before repair. Forecast conditions may include known icing. Please verify airworthiness and authorization. At 4:08 p.m., the insurer acknowledged receipt. At 4:31, Lakefront Risk Management suspended approval for the charter. At 5:02, Professor Ortiz called me. Are you safe? She asked. The question nearly broke me. Yes, come to my office. She locked the door behind me and placed the travel suspension on her desk. I want you to tell me everything. I told her about the stolen project, the forged certification, and the maintenance invoice. I did not tell her I had died. She did not need the impossible truth to understand the possible danger. When I finished, she removed her glasses. Sloane's father called the dean 10 minutes ago. He says you hacked private company records and are trying to sabotage his daughter. The invoice was in the team grant folder. Noah asked me to organize that folder. I know. Information Security confirmed your access was authorized. She leaned forward, 4 undergraduates are listed on that flight besides you, Noah, and Sloan. My chest tightened. In my first life, Tyler, June, Camila, and Ben had died because I boarded instead of getting them off. The university has ordered them not to go, Professor Ortiz continued, but Sloan is telling them the trip is now personal and the order doesn't apply. I knew Sloan. An official notice would become evidence of persecution. She would offer upgrades, promise connections, and shame anyone who hesitated. May I speak to them? Yes, but don't threaten them or tell them what decision to make. Give them the documents. That night, I met the 4 students in a study room. I placed the maintenance invoice, the travel suspension, and the weather advisory on the table. This is not gossip, I said. The university says the plane is not approved. The insurer is reviewing coverage. The repair shop says it should not fly in known icing. Tyler frowned. Sloan said you invented the problem because she replaced you as presenter. You don't have to believe anything I say about Sloan. Read the documents. Camila looked pale. Are you going? No. Then how will you get to Boston? I made other arrangements. Ben picked up the invoice. If we don't go, she says she'll remove us from the team. She has already removed every one of you from the authorship page. Check the submission. They did. Anger spread around the table. I did not beg. I did not tell them I had watched their bodies disappear behind smoke. I gave them the truth and let them choose. By 10 o'clock, all 4 had withdrawn from the charter. At 10:17, Sloan sent me a voice message. You pathetic little parasite. You couldn't beat me, so you poisoned the team. When my father is done with you, no university in this country will take your resume. I saved it to 3 locations. Then I opened the airline app and changed my reservation. The university had originally purchased me a Friday afternoon ticket on a commercial flight. Before Sloan persuaded the team to use her family's plane, Noah had cancelled the ticket in my first life. This time, I used my own money to book the 6:05 a.m. Thursday flight from Cleveland Hopkins to Boston Logan. I chose a seat over the right wing. I told no one. 000. Noah came to my apartment at midnight. He used the key I had given him 6 months earlier and walked in carrying grocery store roses. We need to talk, he said. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Emily Cho on speakerphone. I ended the call but left my phone recording. You could have knocked. Since when do I knock? Since this became my apartment instead of your storage unit. His smile slipped. What's going on with you? You'll need to be more specific. He put the flowers down. The flight, the team, Sloan's presentation. You've spent 3 years saying you wanted Embertrace to save lives. And now you're willing to destroy it because you aren't the face of the company. Did you use my account to certify that Sloan was the sole inventor? He paused just a fraction too long. We made a strategic decision. That wasn't my question. I manage submissions. You authorized me. I authorized you to upload files, not forge my signature. His face hardened. Be careful with that word. Which word? Forge. He came around the table. In my first life, that movement would have made me retreat. This time, I watched him glance at my laptop, the hallway, and the roses. He was calculating how much force he could use without leaving marks. You need to retract the aviation complaint, he said. Why? Because the plane is safe. Then an inspection will confirm it. An inspection will take days. We leave Friday. Take the commercial flight. There are no seats left for the equipment. Then attend remotely. Sloan's family has invested too much for you to humiliate her. I almost admired the honesty. And what have I invested? Don't make this emotional. 14 months, 2,000 hours, my savings, my mother's story. But your affair partner has invested a ring light, so I should be reasonable. The color left his face. What did you say? I slid his phone across the table. He had left it charging in my bedroom the previous night. I had not opened it. I did not need to. Sloan's message preview had appeared on the lock screen. Can't wait until Boston. No more sneaking after we get her signature, Maya. It's not what you think. That line should embarrass you more than the affair. He reached for me. I lifted my phone. My attorney is listening. She wasn't anymore. But he did not know that. His hands stopped. You hired a lawyer. I filed an invention disclosure, too, for the first time since I woke. Noah looked afraid. You can't do that. The project belongs to the team. Then the investigation should be simple. Withdraw it. No. If you go through with this, we're over. In my first life, I would have asked how 3 years could mean so little in this life. I stood, removed his key from my ring, and placed it on the table. We were over when you chose which woman got the oxygen mask. He stared at me. What does that mean? It means leave. He did not move until I opened the apartment door and 2 neighbors looked out from across the hall. Then he picked up the roses and threw them into my sink. You're going to regret this. Not twice, he left. I changed the lock before sunrise. At 4:20 the next morning, I rolled one suitcase through Cleveland Hopkins. I wore a baseball cap and a surgical mask, not because I feared being recognized by strangers, but because Sloan had student followers everywhere. At the gate, my phone filled with notifications. Noah, where are you? Noah, we have rehearsal at 8. Sloan, if you don't bring the calibration key, I'll report you for theft. Noah, answer me. I turned the phone to airplane mode. The commercial jet lifted through gray clouds at 6:18. As Cleveland disappeared beneath me, I pressed my palm to the cold window. The first time, I had been trapped in a falling cabin because Noah had cancelled my way out. This time, I had purchased my own seat. It was the best $487 I had ever spent. 000 Boston smelled of rain and jet fuel. I reached the hotel in Cambridge before 9, checked in under my own name, and found Professor Ortiz waiting in the lobby. For one stunned second, neither of us spoke. You are supposed to be in Cleveland, she said. So are you? She lifted her phone, after risk management suspended the charter. The dean put me on the first commercial flight, then Sloan told him she was traveling privately and no longer required university approval. That is not how student travel policy works. No, it is how Sloan believes student travel policy works. Professor Ortiz took in my suitcase, my backpack, and the hard equipment case I had checked separately. You brought the real prototype. I never gave it to them. Her mouth curved. Good. We moved to a quiet corner of the lobby. I showed her the patent receipt and the decoy files. When I explained the hidden rights marker, she raised an eyebrow. You knew they would take it. I knew they had already taken it. I preserved the theft. There is a difference between preserving evidence and engineering misconduct. The decoy contains no false safety claim and cannot damage anything. It is an old version of my own work. Every result is labeled in the source metadata. They removed the labels when they made their slides. She studied me for several seconds. You thought this through. I had time, 5 days, and 1 death. She did not ask what I meant. The National Collegiate Innovation Challenge occupied 2 floors of the Kendall Conference Center. 40 university teams had brought medical devices, climate tools, agricultural robots, and enough matching polo shirts to supply a small army. Registration opened at 10. When I approached the desk, the volunteer scanned my identification and frowned. Your team lead reported you had withdrawn. I did not withdraw. She turned the monitor toward me. The portal displayed an electronic form submitted at 2:51 a.m. 3 nights earlier. Maya Bennett, voluntarily relinquish authorship and presentation rights in Embertrace to Sloan Whitaker. At the bottom was my typed name and a checkbox marked under penalty of disqualification. That submission is fraudulent, I said. The volunteer's eyes widened. Professor Ortiz stepped forward. Lakefront University has opened a research integrity investigation. Please contact your competition director. Within 20 minutes, we sat across from Dr. Malcolm Reeves, a former National Science Foundation program officer with silver hair and no patience for donor names. I gave him the filing receipt, the server preservation notice, and Dr. Shaw's letter confirming that I was the disclosed inventor. He read everything. Mess. Whitaker submitted a replacement deck last night, he said. Does it list her as sole inventor? It does. May I see the file hash? He gave it to me. It matched the decoy. That deck is based on a deprecated build taken from my shared folder after my account was accessed without authorization. Can you prove that? Yes. I opened my laptop and showed him the repository history. Professor Ortiz explained the laboratory work. Dr. Reeves asked technical questions for nearly an hour. I answered all of them. At last, he folded his hands. We cannot adjudicate ownership before tomorrow's semifinal, but we can separate the submissions. Ms. Whitaker may present the work she claims is hers. You may present the work you claim is yours. Our integrity panel will review both. Professor Ortiz began to object. I touched her sleeve. That's fine, Dr. Reeves looked surprised. You understand that if the panel determines you coordinated duplicate submissions, both may be disqualified. I understand. I also understood something he did not. Sloan could memorize a speech. She could not explain why a flame front curved east at minute 17. Outside the office, Professor Ortiz rounded on me. Why did you agree? Because an accusation lets her perform innocence, questions make her demonstrate it, and if she doesn't arrive, I looked at the clock, 10:51 a.m., in my first life, the King Air had departed at 9:58 and fallen at 10:43, this timeline had already changed. The university's suspension, the withdrawn students, and my disappearance had delayed them. I did not know when they would leave or Whether the FAA would reach the aircraft first. Rebirth had given me information, not control. Then the records speak for themselves, I said. My phone began vibrating. Sloan, I declined. She called again. I declined again. On the third call, I answered and started recording. Her face filled the screen. She sat in the rear cabin of N421WT, framed by cream leather and polished walnut. My competition badge hung from her neck. Behind her, Noah leaned over a laptop, the gold stripe outside the oval window told me they were still on the ground. Surprise, I said. Sloane's eyes narrowed. Where are you? Boston. Noah looked up so fast he struck his shoulder on an overhead cabinet. That's impossible, he said. Commercial aviation is useful that way. You canceled the charter. Sloane said, no, your insurer suspended coverage. The university suspended approval. I don't control either organization. You filed the complaint. I reported a maintenance record, a stolen record. It was in the folder Noah assigned me to audit. Noah moved into view. Maya, listen to me. Do not speak to the judges until we arrive. I already did. The muscles in his jaw tightened. Whatever you told them, retract it. Why, you have the winning project. Sloane glanced at the equipment case beside her. My name was still on the old baggage tag. We have everything we need. Then come answer the judge's questions. A red-haired man in a pilot's jacket appeared behind them. I recognized Calvin Rusk, owner of North Coast Executive Charter. In my first life, he had removed the warning sticker. Phones off, he said. We're taxiing. Through the window, I saw not the lakefront terminal I remembered, but a low gray hangar and a blue sign marked CGF. They had moved the aircraft to Cuyahoga County Airport. My report had worked. Someone had blocked the original departure, and they had evaded it. You're at Cuyahoga County, I said. Sloane smiled. My father doesn't need permission to use his own plane. The university order still applies. This isn't a university flight. Then why are you carrying university equipment and traveling to a university competition? Her smile disappeared. Noah reached for the phone. Maya, if you care about any future with me, you will stop. We don't have a future. You don't mean that. I meant it when I changed the locks. His face twisted. The aircraft began to move. A line of freezing rain tracked sideways across the window. Memory pressed against my ribs. The warning tone, the falling masks. The white sky. For one instant, I wanted to say it. Get off. The wing will ice. The plane will fall. Then I remembered Noah looking into my eyes before giving Sloane the oxygen mask. I remembered Sloane planning to bury my name even if we all died. I remembered that I had already warned the FAA, the insurer, the university, the professor, the students, and the operator in writing. The only people who had not received a personal plea were the people who had used my first plea as a weapon. I owed them no second performance. Good luck with the demonstration, I said. I ended the call. Professor Ortiz had heard enough to understand. They moved the aircraft. Yes, she was already dialing. I'm calling risk management. I'll update the FAA report. I sent the current location, the screenshot of Sloane inside the aircraft, and the aircraft's taxi time. Then I called the flight standards office number from the acknowledgement email. The duty officer said an inspector had been dispatched to Burke Lakefront and local authorities would be notified. Can you stop them? I asked. Air traffic control can issue instructions, but I can't discuss an active response. Are you on the aircraft? No, do not approach it. Preserve everything you have. For more than 2 hours, the aircraft remained near the runway while its amended flight plan and departure clearance were questioned. Sloane posted angry updates about bureaucrats trying to steal her future. The freezing drizzle became steadier. At 1:14 p.m., N421WT finally took off. I knew because Sloane began live streaming. She called the flight the Road to Victory and told 68,000 followers that jealous competitors had tried to ground her. Noah sat across from her, smiling too brightly. Calvin Rusk's voice came over the cabin speaker, promising a smooth flight to Massachusetts. Comments filled the screen. Queen behavior. Imagine trying to cancel Sloane Whitaker. Poor people hate private planes. Sloane lifted my prototype case into view. They can delay innovation, she said. They can't stop it. The stream ended 12 minutes later. At 1:39, the aircraft stopped transmitting altitude data over northeastern Ohio. At 1:44, a local news account reported that air traffic controllers had lost contact with a private turboprop flying east. At 1:51, Professor Ortiz took my phone from my hand because I had begun crushing it. Exactly 3 hours after Sloane had smiled at me from the cream leather cabin, rescue crews were searching frozen woods for the pieces of her plane. Sit down, Maya. They should have reached them. You did everything a person could legally do. The first time, I stopped, her eyes sharpened. The first time what? The first time I found the maintenance record. Noah told me the patch would hold. It was close enough to truth. At 2:07, emergency crews located smoke in a wooded wetland south of Erie, Pennsylvania. At 2:21, the competition director postponed the Ember Tray semi-final. At 2:46, a television in the conference lobby showed the first aerial image of the wreckage. The King Air lay broken among black trees and late winter ice. The tail, still marked with a gold W, had separated from the fuselage. Smoke rose through freezing rain. The banner under the image read, "Private aircraft carrying Lakefront University students crashes en route to Boston." Students gathered around the screen. Several recognized me and looked between my face and Sloane's photograph. "Weren't you supposed to be on that plane?" someone asked. I could not answer. A new banner appeared, one confirmed dead, 2 survivors transported to Erie Hospital. Only 3 people had boarded. Calvin Rusk was dead. Noah and Sloane were alive. I went to the restroom and vomited until my stomach cramped, not because I regretted changing my flight, because my body remembered dying even when the world said I had survived. When I returned, Emily Cho was waiting beside Professor Ortiz. She had flown from Cleveland after the university investigation began. "Do not speak to reporters," she said. "Do not post. Do not respond to the Whitakers." I wasn't planning to. Good. Pennsylvania State Police will want a statement. The National Transportation Safety Board will investigate the crash. Your FAA report will matter. They'll say I caused it. Can they place you near the aircraft? No. Did you alter any maintenance record? No. Did you threaten anyone? No. Did you conceal the defect from authorities? I reported it to everyone with jurisdiction. Emily nodded. Then let documents do what panic cannot. I looked through the lobby window at the rain. In my first life, Sloane had told me the news would remember her project. Now the news remembered her plane. But this was not the ending. Women like Sloane did not surrender when consequences arrived. They renamed consequences persecution and hired someone to broadcast the new title. At 4:03 p.m., Whitaker Holdings issued a statement. The statement identified Sloane and Noah as victims of a suspected act of sabotage. At 4:11, an anonymous account posted my photograph and flight itinerary. At 4:19, the hashtag MAYABNNETTFLED began trending on campus. By 5, strangers had decided that changing my ticket was proof of murder. 000. The first police interview took place in a conference room at the Massachusetts State Police Barracks near Logan Airport. Emily sat beside me. Professor Ortiz waited outside. Detective Aaron Walsh from Pennsylvania joined by video, while an NTSB investigator named Dana Kim participated from Washington. Dana spoke first. Ms. Bennett, when did you first become aware of a possible problem with the aircraft? Tuesday at 1:36 p.m., when I found the maintenance invoice in the project finance folder. How precise is that time? The university preserved the access log. What did you do next? I gave her the sequence. Attorney, FAA hotline, flight standards, university, insurer, professor, students. Emily supplied copies of the acknowledgements. Dana examined the documents. Why did you book a different flight before the university formally prohibited the charter? This was the dangerous question, because I remembered my skull-striking medal. The invoice said the aircraft had not been released for known icing. The forecast predicted freezing precipitation. I didn't need a formal prohibition to decide not to fly. Why didn't you tell Ms. Whitaker and Mr. Grant directly? They had access to the same invoice. Mr. Grant replied to the maintenance email 3 weeks ago. I showed them his response. Dana's expression did not change, but Detective Walsh leaned closer to his screen. So Mr. Grant knew the repair had not been completed. Yes. Did Ms. Whitaker? I don't know what he told her before this week. During our video call, I said the insurer and university had suspended the trip. She said her father didn't need permission. You recorded the call. Yes, I provided it. Dana watched Sloane boast from the cabin, then watched freezing rain slide across the window. Did you know they had moved the aircraft to Cuyahoga County Airport before this call? No, I recognized the sign outside, and you updated the FAA. Within 4 minutes, the interview lasted 3 hours. At the end, Dana closed her notebook. We will need your devices imaged. The university has already preserved my laptop, but you can examine anything you need. Thank you. Detective Walsh cleared his throat. One more question. The equipment case visible on Ms. Whitaker's live stream has your name on it. What was inside? A decoy demonstration unit. Decoy? Emily shifted beside me, but I answered. An old Ember Trace hardware build. It was safe and functional, but it lacked current calibration software. I left it in the shared laboratory locker. Why? Because Ms. Whitaker and Mr. Grant had already used my credentials to claim my invention. I expected them to take project material, so I preserved the serial number and documented the locker. Was there a lithium battery inside, a transport-rated battery under 100 watt-hours, installed according to the manufacturer's instructions? I have the specifications and purchase record. Dana made a note. Do you know whether they added any other batteries? No. The investigators exchanged a glance. I felt the old cold touch my spine. Why are you asking? We are not discussing preliminary evidence, Dana said. Do not speculate publicly. Outside, Emily stopped me before I reached Professor Ortiz. You handled that well. They found something in the case. They found many things in a wreck. We wait for verified facts. What if Noah puts something dangerous in my case? Then the evidence will show who put it there. My phone rang. Unknown number. Erie, Pennsylvania. Emily told me not to answer. A voicemail arrived. The voice belonged to Noah's mother. Maya, this is Diane. Noah is in surgery. They may have to take his leg. Sloane is burned over almost half her body. I don't know what happened between you children, but the police say you reported the plane. If you knew it was dangerous, why didn't you stop him? How could you let him go? I listened once, then I forwarded it to Emily and blocked the number. Professor Ortiz put an arm around my shoulders. You do not have to carry their families too. I know. For the first time, I did. 000. The competition offered to postpone my presentation for a month. I refused, not because I felt nothing. I had barely slept. Every mechanical sound in the hotel became a warning tone. When an elevator dropped half an inch, I collapsed against the wall, but Ember Trace had already been taken from me once. I would not let Sloane occupy it again simply by surviving the wreckage she had chosen. The Integrity Panel scheduled a preliminary authorship review Friday morning. Since Sloane and Noah were hospitalized, their attorney submitted a written claim on their behalf. Whitaker Holdings hired Barton Klein, a trial lawyer whose website described him as the advocate institution's fear. He arrived with 3 associates and a 30-page brief. The brief said Sloane had originated Ember Trace after witnessing fires at her family's Napa property. It described me as a junior programmer hired to implement her vision. It attached the fraudulent withdrawal form and accused me of exploiting the crash to steal a hospitalized woman's company. The panel consisted of Dr. Reeves, 2 faculty judges, an intellectual property attorney, and a venture capital representative. Barton opened with tragedy. Ms. Whitaker lies in an intensive care unit, he said. She cannot defend herself from an opportunistic former teammate who abandoned the group hours before a catastrophic crash. Emily rose. The ownership of an invention is not determined by the severity of a claimant's injuries. No, Barton said. It is determined by evidence. For once, we agree. He presented Sloane's deck. My deck. The opening map showed the Napa estate story she had invented. The technical slides contained my diagram stripped of revision history. Barton displayed photographs of Sloane speaking at entrepreneurship events and called them proof that she had led development. When my turn came, I did not begin with the affair, the plane, or the stolen login. I began with a paper notebook. This is Laboratory Notebook 1, I said. The first entry is dated January 8th of last year. The panel examined numbered pages, witness signatures, and hand-drawn airflow models. Sloane Whitaker joined the project on October 14th, I continued. By then, Ember Trace had completed 2 field simulations and 1 controlled burn test. I displayed the Git history. 412 commits belonged to me, 31 belonged to Professor Ortiz's graduate assistant. Noah had made 7 administrative updates. Sloane had made none. Barton objected that leaders need not write code. That's true, I said, so let's examine the idea. I opened a video recorded 9 months before Sloane joined. 17-year-old me stood in front of a county library whiteboard in California, presenting the earliest version of the fire propagation model to a youth engineering program. My mother sat in the audience. The date was embedded in the library archive. Sloane would have been a high school junior in Connecticut. The venture capitalist leaned forward. I continued. The version Ms. Whitaker submitted contains a rights marker belonging to a synthetic data license purchased through my personal account. That license expired before she joined the project. If she created the work independently, please ask her representatives to produce the original unmarked dataset. Barton had none. Finally, the submitted demonstration contains a diagnostic question in the source. I projected the comment. If you understand this system, explain why the flame front curves east at minute 17. Can Ms. Whitaker's team answer? Dr. Reeves asked. Barton looked at his associates. One whispered in his ear, "This is a theatrical trap," he said. No, I replied, it's fluid dynamics, Dr. Reeves turned to me. Why does it curve east? Because the version they took applies the terrain shadow before the wind vector correction. At minute 17, the uncorrected model treats a dry riverbed as a continuous slope. The finished system resolves the error using local pressure data. I ran both models side by side. In the decoy, the red flame front bent sharply east. In the finished build, it split around the riverbed and slowed. The answer was not a password Sloane had failed to steal. It was knowledge she had never earned. The panel recessed for 23 minutes. When they returned, Dr. Reeves read the decision. The challenge recognizes Maya Bennett as the sole current inventor and authorized presenter of Embertrace. Sloane Whitaker's submission is suspended for probable plagiarism and misrepresentation. The matter will be referred to Lakefront University and the competition's Permanent Ethics Committee. My knees almost failed. Professor Ortiz squeezed my hand beneath the table. Barton gathered his files. This isn't over, he said quietly. No, I agreed, the criminal part hasn't started. His eyes flickered. He knew about the forged account. By that afternoon, Sloane's name had been removed from the competition website. Mine stood alone. At 4:00 p.m., I walked onto the semi-final stage carrying the real Embertrace unit. There were no ring lights, no designer coats, and no dramatic story about a Napa estate. I told the audience about my mother loading photographs into a laundry basket while fire crossed the ridge. I explained what emergency maps had missed. Then I demonstrated how Embertrace combined drone thermal imaging, local wind pressure, fuel moisture, and terrain features to update a fire front every 90 seconds. The model worked. When the judges asked questions, I answered them. When I did not know something, I said so. That honesty felt more powerful than any performance Sloane had rehearsed. I advanced to the final. As I left the stage, every phone in the hall buzzed with a news alert. Survivor of Whitaker plane crash accuses teammate of sabotage. Noah's photograph appeared beneath the headline. He was awake, and he had chosen his first lie. 000 Noah spoke to a reporter from his hospital bed before he spoke to the police. The video showed only his face and upper body. White sheets covered the place where his right leg had been. His skin was gray, his lip split, and a brace held his left shoulder still. The sight should have hurt me for 3 years. I had known every small movement of that face. I knew the line that appeared beside his mouth when he tried not to laugh. I knew he rubbed his eyebrow when anxious and tilted his chin when lying. In the interview, he did both. Maya discovered a maintenance problem and told no one, he said. She switched flights in secret. She left a defective prototype on our plane, and then she waited for us to die. The reporter asked whether he had known about the FAA complaint. No, if she had warned me, I would never have boarded. That lie traveled faster than the crash investigation. By midnight, someone had posted my apartment address. My university inbox received 1,800 messages. A stranger created a poll asking whether I deserved prison or Lake Justice. Another edited footage of my semi-final, so applause played over images of the burning wreck. Lakefront sent campus police to my building in Cleveland. The hotel moved me to a room under Professor Ortiz's name. The competition final was postponed again. Emily sat at the desk in my room, reading Noah's interview transcript. He made 3 provably false statements, she said. Only 3 that matter immediately. He denied knowing about the defect. His email proves knowledge. He denied knowing about the complaint. Your recorded call proves knowledge. He implied your prototype caused the crash, but the NTSB has not identified a cause. He said I left it on the plane. Did you? I left it in the team locker. Who had locker access? All registered team members. Then do not let his wording become yours. My phone lit with another voicemail notification. Noah's mother had begun calling from new numbers. Sloane's publicist had emailed a request for me to clarify misunderstandings. Dean Talbot wanted an emergency conduct meeting. I wanted to pull the curtains and disappear. Then I remembered what disappearing had done in my first life. Sloane had filled every silence with her version of me. Can I release the FAA acknowledgement? I asked. Emily considered it. The investigators have a copy. Releasing it would not expose wreck evidence, but one document will invite arguments about context. Then we released the timeline. Together, we prepared a statement with hyperlinks to redacted documents. Tuesday, 1:36 p.m., maintenance invoice discovered. Tuesday, 2:12 p.m., report submitted to FAA. Tuesday, 4:31 p.m., university suspends charter. Wednesday, 10:17 p.m., all uninvolved student passengers withdraw. Thursday, 10:58 a.m., Sloan Whitaker and Noah Grant confirm by video that they moved the aircraft and intend to depart despite suspension. Thursday, 11:02 a.m. Updated location provided to FAA. Thursday, 1:14 p.m. Aircraft departs after an extended ground delay. We attached the portion of the video in which I said, the insurer and university suspended the trip. And Sloan replied, "My father doesn't need permission." At the end, I wrote, "I did not sabotage the aircraft, I did not conceal its maintenance condition from any authority. I will cooperate fully with the NTSB, law enforcement, and Lakefront University's investigations. I will not try this case on social media." Professor Ortiz read it. You know, the last sentence guarantees social media will try it anyway, then they'll have to do it without my testimony. We posted the statement at 8:00 the next morning. By 8:07, the university newspaper confirmed the travel suspension. By 8:20, Camila posted that I had shown all 4 junior team members the safety documents and helped them withdraw. Tyler, June, and Ben added their names. By 9, the narrative shifted. The same accounts that had called me a murderer began calling Noah a liar. Some apologized, most deleted their posts and pretended they had always been waiting for facts. I learned not to confuse changing crowds with justice. Justice had rules, records, and consequences. Crowds had refresh buttons. At 10, Dean Talbot appeared on my laptop for the emergency conduct meeting. He sat beneath a portrait of Sloan's grandfather. Beside him were the vice president for student affairs, a university attorney, Dr. Shaw, and an investigator from the Office of Research Integrity. Emily attended as my advisor. Dean Talbot began with concern, "Maya, the university community is grieving. This is not an adversarial meeting. Any meeting that begins by denying it is adversarial. Then what is its purpose?" Emily asked, to understand why a student withheld a known danger from 2 classmates. I kept my expression neutral. I did not withhold it. The university notified the entire team that the charter was suspended. You knew Mr. Grant and Ms. Whitaker planned to fly anyway. I learned that during the video call. Professor Ortiz immediately contacted risk management, and I updated the FAA, but you did not personally tell them the aircraft would crash. Emily leaned forward. "Dean, are you asserting Ms. Bennett possessed certain knowledge of a future accident?" He faltered, "Of course not." "Then phrase your question accurately." His jaw tightened. "Why did you not make a greater effort to persuade them?" I looked at the portrait over his shoulder. "Because they had the maintenance invoice before I did, Mr. Grant responded to it 3 weeks earlier. They had the insurer's suspension, the university order, my warning during the call, and a pilot capable of assessing the weather. They responded by moving the plane to another airport and falsifying the purpose of the trip. What additional duty do you believe university policy placed on me?" The university attorney looked down. Dean Talbot changed direction. "There is also the issue of the prototype. You deliberately left a compromised unit where the team would find it. Deprecated, not compromised. A distinction without a difference." Dr. Shaw interrupted. "It is a significant difference. The unit was an older safe version of Ms. Bennett's own work. Our preliminary forensic review found no malicious code, dangerous modification, or false safety labeling, but she intended Sloan to use it. She intended to preserve evidence of continuing unauthorized access." Emily said, "Your own research integrity office advised her not to confront the subjects while logs were being preserved. That was not precisely how events began, but after my first report, it was true." The investigator cleared his throat. "Our office has confirmed that Mr. Grant accessed Ms. Bennett's competition account from his residence and changed authorship data. We have also located a message from Ms. Whitaker instructing him to delete Ms. Bennett's backup credentials before departure." Dean Talbot went silent. The vice president for student affairs turned toward him. "Were you aware of that?" "No." "Were you aware that Mr. Whitaker contacted risk management and threatened to withdraw a pledged gift if the charter suspension remained in place?" Talbot's face reddened. "Donor conversations are confidential, not when they concern student safety." For the first time, I understood that the meeting was no longer about me. Institutions protect power until protecting power becomes more expensive than exposing it. The crash had changed the price. The university attorney asked Dean Talbot whether he had forwarded the donor threat to council. He had not. The vice president asked whether he had told students the suspension was optional. He denied it. Dr. Shaw opened an email. At 7:42 Wednesday evening, you wrote to Professor Ortiz. "If the Whitakers classify this as personal travel, the university need not interfere." Talbot stared at the screen. Emily muted our microphone. "Do not smile," she whispered. "I'm not." "Your eyes are." the meeting ended with Dean Talbot placed on administrative leave pending a safety review. Lakefront issued a statement confirming that the charter had been prohibited, that the prohibition had been communicated, and that an investigation into academic misconduct was active. Sloane's grandfather's portrait disappeared from the conference room feed the next day. The building kept his name. For now, 000 NTSB investigators found the first decisive piece of physical evidence in the left wing. The pneumatic de-icing boot had not merely failed, it had been patched with a material not approved for the aircraft and painted to resemble an intact surface. Beneath the patch, the rubber had separated over 19 inches. Maintenance documents claimed the boot had been replaced. No replacement part had ever been installed. The second piece of evidence came from the cockpit voice recorder. Emily warned me before Dana Kim played an excerpt at our follow-up interview. You do not have to listen. Yes, I do. The recording began 7 minutes before impact. Calvin Rusk's voice was strained. We're picking up more ice than forecast. I need to turn back. Noah answered from the cockpit doorway. Boston is closer. It isn't. Sloane's voice cut through the cabin. My father owns this aircraft. We are not landing in Cleveland after that girl humiliated me, Rusk said. The left boot isn't cycling. You said the patch would hold, Noah replied. I said it might hold in light ice, then climb out of it. There's traffic above us. A warning tone sounded. Sloane swore. If we miss the presentation, North Coast will never see another Whitaker dollar. Rusk's breathing changed. Sit down and buckle in. The audio ended with the stall warning. I gripped the edge of the table. In my first life, I had heard only fragments from the cabin. I had believed the pilot was surprised by the failure. He had not been surprised, he had been pressured, but he had also chosen to take off in an aircraft he knew was not airworthy. His death was tragic. It did not make his choices innocent. Dana stopped the recording. The final report will take months, she said, but the investigation is examining maintenance falsification, operational decision-making, weather, weight and balance, and passenger pressure. What about the equipment case? I asked. She exchanged a look with the federal agent beside her. We can now discuss that. The case contained your demonstration unit and 6 high-capacity lithium battery packs. 2 were damaged in the post-impact fire. 4 remained identifiable. None matched the specifications you provided. I didn't buy or pack them. Airport surveillance shows Mr. Grant loading the packs into the case at Cuyahoga County. We recovered a shipping carton from his vehicle. Why? The federal agent answered. Based on messages obtained with a warrant, Mr. Grant intended to display an endurance upgrade at the competition. He and Ms. Whitaker discussed blaming any transportation violation on you because your name remained on the case. Dana added, the batteries did not cause the loss of control. The evidence indicates the fire began after impact, but undeclared carriage violated hazardous material rules and intensified the cabin fire. For a moment, I could hear only Sloane's words from my first death. At least they'll remember it as my project. She had planned to use my name only for the illegal cargo. May I see the messages? The agent slid redacted copies across the table. Sloane, put them in Maya's case. If airport staff complain, it's her prototype and her paperwork. Noah, she won't be there to answer. Sloane, exactly, Noah. After Boston we say she abandoned the team and endangered the flight. Cleanest way to finish her. The date was Wednesday night. After they learned I had reported the maintenance defect, they had planned to destroy my career even if the plane landed safely. Emily read the messages, then looked at the agent. My client is a victim of identity theft, wire fraud, and a deliberate attempt to frame her for a federal transportation violation. Those matters have been referred to the appropriate offices, and the public accusation of sabotage. Mr. Grant made statements inconsistent with evidence. We will address that with his counsel. When we left, I sat in Emily's car without fastening my seatbelt. Say it, she said. Whatever you're trying not to say. I am glad I didn't warn them again. The words sounded ugly in the closed car. Emily did not flinch. You did warn them. You are glad you did not beg. Is there a legal difference? There is an important human one. I fastened the belt. They'll survive. Probably. Then they will have to hear all of it. Yes. That was when I understood why survival could be a harsher ending than death. The dead do not sit through hearings. They do not hear former friends testify. They do not watch their lies separated from them, one document at a time. 000 Sloane regained consciousness 9 days after the crash. Her publicist released a photograph of her hand resting on a hospital blanket. The image showed one unburned finger wearing a thin gold ring. The caption called her a fighter, a visionary, and the target of a calculated betrayal. No photograph showed her face. Within hours, a fundraising page appeared for Sloane's long recovery and fight for justice. Her family could have paid every medical bill without noticing. The fundraiser was not about money, it was a referendum on innocence. It raised $312,000 before the platform froze it for misleading claims. Noah underwent 5 surgeries. His right leg was amputated above the knee, and nerve damage limited his left hand. His mother posted daily updates that always ended with the same line, "The person who let this happen is still walking free." I did not respond. Instead, I returned to Cleveland for the university authorship hearing. Lakefront held it in the same Whitaker Center conference room where Sloan had rehearsed my childhood story. The ring light was gone, so was the portrait. Sloan appeared by video from a rehabilitation hospital. Only the left side of her face was visible. Pink grafted skin crossed her cheek and jaw. A rigid brace supported her spine. Her blonde hair had been shaved around surgical dressings. Seeing her shocked me. I did not enjoy the injuries. I enjoyed that they no longer purchased silence. Noah joined from a separate hospital with his own attorney. He did not look at Sloan. The hearing panel included faculty members, the research integrity officer, a student representative, and an outside expert. Dean Talbot remained on leave. The investigator began with the server logs. Noah's attorney admitted he had accessed my account but claimed I had given blanket permission. The investigator displayed my permissions email. "You may upload the final team PDF after all listed authors approve it. You may not alter authorship, certifications, or account recovery settings." Noah rubbed his eyebrow. The investigator then produced his message to Sloan, changed Maya's recovery email. "She won't get alerts until after we land." Sloan's attorney argued she believed Noah had obtained consent. The next message appeared. Sloan, "Did she sign?" Noah typed her name. "Same thing." Sloan, "Perfect. Delete the notification." Even through the video connection, I saw Sloan's uninjured. I narrow at Noah. The panel moved to project history. Professor Ortiz testified that I had proposed Ember Trace, designed its architecture, and performed the core research. Dr. Shaw presented the invention disclosure and provisional patent. The competition sent its finding. Sloan insisted she had supplied the business strategy and public narrative that may support a marketing credit. The outside expert said, "It does not make you an inventor. Without me, no one would know her name." Sloan said. The room became still. Her lawyer leaned toward the camera, apparently trying to stop her, but Sloan had spent her life confusing attention with ownership. "Maya had no story until I gave her one," she continued. "She was a scholarship student with a trauma anecdote. I made people care. You used my mother's evacuation," I said. "I made it useful." The student representative stared at her in disgust. Sloan realized too late that she had stopped sounding like a victim. Noah's attorney requested a recess. Noah refused. "She planned it," he said. Sloan turned toward his screen. "Excuse me, Sloan told me to change the authorship. She said her father would fund the company only if she controlled the patent. You were the account manager. Because you made me do it, I didn't make you sleep with me either." Her attorney closed his eyes. Noah's mother gasped off camera. There it was, the affair, entered into the official record by the 2 people who had tried to hide it. I said nothing. I did not need to expose them. Pressure had done it for me. The hearing lasted 6 hours. At the end, the panel found Sloan and Noah responsible for fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, unauthorized system access, retaliation, and interference with a safety report. It recommended permanent dismissal. Because they were seniors, dismissal meant no degrees. 4 years of credits remained on transcripts branded with conduct findings that other institutions could request. The university revoked Sloan's student leadership awards. Noah's graduate school recommendation was withdrawn. Both were banned from campus and from representing Lakefront in any capacity. The board also ordered an independent review of Whitaker donations and removed the family name from the Entrepreneurship Center pending the outcome. Sloan stared at the screen. "My grandfather built that building." The vice president for student affairs answered, "Your grandfather funded it. The university built it." For the first time in either life, I saw Sloan Whitaker with no response. When the hearing ended, her mother approached me in the hallway. Margaret Whitaker looked like an older, sharper version of Sloan. She wore a navy suit and held herself so rigidly that grief seemed like another posture she had paid to perfect. "1 minute," she said. Emily stepped between us. "All communication goes through counsel. I'm not threatening her." "Then you won't object to witnesses?" Margaret looked at me. "My daughter will live with those burns for the rest of her life." "Yes, she has lost her degree, her career, her mobility. What more do you want?" The truth entered into every record she falsified. "You could ask the prosecutors for mercy." "No." Her composure cracked. "You were supposed to love Noah." "I did." "Then how could you let him board?" The question belonged to his mother, to Dean Talbot. To every stranger who believed a woman should throw herself beneath the consequences of a man she once loved, Noah knew the plane was unsafe 3 weeks before I did. He helped hide the defect, forged my signature, loaded illegal batteries in my name, and moved the aircraft to evade an inspection. I reported the danger to every responsible authority. He did not need a girlfriend to save him, he needed to obey the law. Margaret's lips trembled. Sloan has already paid. The crash was the consequence of ignoring a safety warning. Prison will be the consequence of committing crimes. They are not interchangeable. I walked away. Emily caught up beside the elevator. That sentence will be in a documentary someday. Only if they pay me. She laughed. It was the first time I had heard myself laugh since the plane went down. 000. The National Collegiate Innovation Challenge final took place 6 weeks later. By then, spring had reached Boston. Trees along the Charles River carried pale green leaves, and the rain no longer froze against hotel windows. I still checked the weather before every flight. I still woke at 10:43 some nights with my hand reaching for an oxygen mask. Surviving did not erase dying. It only gave me time to learn how to live beside the memory. The competition hall was full when I walked on stage. The crash had made Embertrace infamous before anyone understood what it did. Reporters occupied the back row. 2 documentary producers had sent requests. A streaming network wanted an interview titled The Girl Who Knew. I declined all of them. I was not there to predict a plane crash. I was there to predict fire. The final required a 10-minute demonstration followed by 20 minutes of technical and commercialization questions. I connected the field unit, loaded a real burn simulation dataset from Plumas County, and began. A wildfire map is a photograph of where danger was. I told the judges, people need to know where danger is going. The system divided the landscape into dynamic fuel cells. Drone sensors updated heat intensity. Ground stations supplied humidity and pressure. Embertrace recalculated movement when wind changed. Instead of forcing new information into an outdated forecast at minute 17, the simulated flame front reached the dry riverbed. This time, it split correctly. No false curve, no stolen model, no one else's name. The judges asked about false positives, drone range, rural internet outages, insurance liability, and whether small counties could afford the hardware. I answered with field data and acknowledged the limits. When one judge challenged my claim that Embertrace updated faster than a federal mapping platform, I corrected the comparison. Faster in our test conditions, I said, not in every deployment. I would rather narrow the claim than sell a county confidence we haven't earned. That answer mattered more than the dramatic simulation. After the last presentation, the teams gathered beneath a screen displaying the competition logo. Third place went to a low-cost neonatal monitor from Georgia. Second went to a water purification membrane from Arizona, DR. Reeves opened the final envelope, the National Collegiate Innovation Challenge Grand Prize, including a $5,000,000 development grant and placement in the Federal Climate Resilience Accelerator, goes to Embertrace, created by Maya Bennett of Lakefront University. For several seconds, I did not move. Professor Ortiz pushed me gently toward the stage. The applause rose. In my first life, Sloan had said the world would remember the project under her name. This time, my name filled a 40-foot screen. I accepted the award without mentioning her. That was the cleanest victory of all. She had made herself the center of my destruction. I refused to make her the center of my future. Afterward, Dr. Reeves introduced me to representatives from the U.S. Forest Service, 2 county emergency management directors, and a climate technology fund. Dr. Shaw called to say the provisional patent had passed its first internal review. Professor Ortiz cried into a paper napkin and denied it when I noticed, at the hotel that evening, a certified letter waited at the desk. The return address belonged to the Federal Medical Center where Noah was being held pending a release decision. I opened it with Emily beside me. Maya, I know you hate me. I deserve that. I made terrible decisions because Sloan controlled me and because I was afraid of losing everything we worked for. When the plane went down, I realized you were the only person who had ever truly loved me. I remember reaching for you. I remember trying to give you the oxygen mask. Maybe you remember it differently because you were frightened. If you tell the prosecutors I never intended to hurt you, we can stop Sloan from destroying both our lives. I will testify that Embertrace is yours. I will give you every message. When this is over, maybe we can start with forgiveness. Noah, I read the sentence about the oxygen mask twice in this life. I had never been on the aircraft with him. He was remembering something that had not happened, or he had dreamed it after hearing my strange words in the apartment. Either way, he had rewritten the memory exactly as he rewrote everything else, himself reaching toward me, himself trying, himself almost good. "Do you want to respond?" Emily asked. "Yes." She looked concerned until I handed her the letter. "Send it to the federal prosecutor. Noah is trying to influence a witness. That's my girl." "I'm not your girl, that's my highly autonomous client." I laughed again, then I went downstairs and ate dinner with Professor Ortiz while Noah's letter entered an evidence file. 000 winning did not stop the Whitakers from trying to take Embertrace. 3 days after the final, Whitaker Holdings filed a civil complaint in Cuyahoga County. The company claimed Sloan had created Embertrace as a work commission through family capital, and asked a judge to prevent me from accepting the competition grant or licensing the system. The complaint attached photographs of Sloan in our laboratory, receipts for team meals, and a spreadsheet valuing her social media promotion at $1.2 million. It did not attach a single line of code she had written. Emily called the request a press release wearing a case number. Even so, it was dangerous. An injunction could freeze development for months. Counties considering pilot programs would not sign contracts while ownership remained uncertain. The Whitakers did not need to win, they needed to make my victory too expensive to use. At the emergency hearing, their new civil attorney argued that Sloan's family had paid for prototype materials and transportation. Dr. Shaw produced university purchasing records. The National Science Foundation student grant had paid for the sensors. I had paid for the first drone with money from tutoring. The Whitakers had purchased catered lunches, a videographer, and the charter flight that crashed. Which of those expenses created the invention? The judge asked. The attorney said investment need not be technical. True, the judge replied, but buying sandwiches does not ordinarily establish patent inventorship. Emily presented the university decision, the competition finding, the provisional patent filing, and the dated repository. She also presented a voice memo Sloan had sent Noah before the crash. "Once we win, make Maya sign the assignment before she learns what the company is worth. If she refuses, tell everyone she abandoned the project." The judge denied the injunction. Whitaker Holdings withdrew the lawsuit 2 weeks later. Shortly before discovery would have required Sloan's father to testify about aviation payments. They announced the withdrawal on a Friday evening and called it an act of compassion toward a confused former teammate. On Monday morning, I filed counterclaims for misappropriation, unauthorized use of my identity, and damages caused by their coordinated smear campaign. I was no longer interested in accepting their labels for surrender. During civil discovery, Emily obtained the contract Sloan and Noah had planned to force me to sign in Boston. It assigned all Embertrace intellectual property to a Delaware company called Whitaker Fire Intelligence LLC in exchange for 5% non-voting equity. The company had been formed 6 weeks before Sloan told me we were equal partners. The contract also included a morality clause allowing the company to cancel my equity if my conduct created public embarrassment. Beside that clause, Noah had written a note, use airport issue if she resists. In other words, they had designed the theft in 2 stages. First, take my invention, then provoke or manufacture a scandal and take the 5% too. Emily placed the contract in front of me during my deposition preparation. "Does seeing this change your settlement position?" "Yes." "How?" "I want more." She smiled. "Specifics: full reimbursement of legal fees, compensation for the lost development months, a written acknowledgement that neither Sloan nor Whitaker Holdings invented Embertrace. They may not use my name or project in fundraising, rehabilitation content, or future business promotion, and confidentiality. No, they don't get to purchase silence with money taken from the company that tried to steal me." The final settlement came after Sloan's father was indicted. Whitaker Holdings paid into the Student Authorship Fund and issued a public correction. It did not apologize. "Corporations often prefer passive verbs to moral clarity," the statement said. "Prior communications may have created an inaccurate impression regarding the origin of Embertrace. Whitaker Holdings acknowledges that Maya Bennett is its inventor and that neither the company nor Sloan Whitaker possesses ownership rights." I printed it and mailed a copy to Sloan's rehabilitation facility, not as a taunt, as notice. The delivery receipt came back signed with a shaky mark. That evening, Camila joined me for coffee near campus. She had accepted an internship with a federal climate resilience office and was worried people would assume she received it because of the crash. "I almost got on that plane," she said. "Sometimes I feel like every good thing afterward belongs to the version of me who died." My cup stopped halfway to my mouth. "What did you say?" "Not literally." She gave an embarrassed laugh. "I mean the person I would have been if you hadn't shown us the invoice." I set the cup down. "You made the decision not to board, because you warned me, because you read the evidence." Sloan had the same evidence. Camila studied my face. "Do you ever wish you had tried harder with her?" The honest answer came easily now. No, not even after seeing what happened. I wish the FAA had reached the second airport in time. I wish Calvin Rusk had refused to fly. I wish Sloan and Noah had valued their lives more than being right, but I do not wish I had climbed onto that aircraft to make my warning count. She nodded slowly. My therapist says I confuse guilt with control. Mine says something similar. Do therapists share one secret script? Probably. They stole it from a graduate student. Camila laughed so loudly that the people at the next table turned. When we left, she hugged me outside the coffee shop. Thank you for pulling us out. I didn't pull you out. Fine. Thank you for opening the door. That, I could accept. I had opened a door. The innocent students walked through it. Sloan and Noah saw the same exit, locked it behind them, and paid a pilot to use another runway. No amount of compassion required me to call those choices mine. 000 The criminal investigation widened during the summer. What began as aircraft maintenance fraud exposed 3 overlapping schemes. Calvin Rusk had certified work North Coast never performed. Whitaker Aviation paid invoices for replacement parts, then received secret rebates from North Coast. The difference was disguised as consulting fees to a company controlled by Sloan's father. Noah managed several payments through the Embertrace competition grant. He had categorized private flight expenses as prototype field testing and submitted reimbursement requests using my copied signature. Sloan used the false expenses to inflate the amount her family supposedly invested in Embertrace. She planned to demand controlling equity after the competition by claiming Whitaker Holdings had funded most of the development. The stolen invention was not a single impulsive betrayal, it was the asset at the center of a financial plan. Federal agents executed warrants at North Coast's office, the Whitaker family hangar, and Noah's apartment. They recovered a printer used to create false maintenance labels, and signed university travel forms, and a draft press release prepared before the crash. The draft was titled "Lakefront Team Removes Rogue Developer After Dangerous Abandonment." It accused me of leaving hazardous batteries in university equipment and disappearing with proprietary code. They had written my public execution before boarding the plane. The crash merely forced them to publish a different version. A grand jury returned indictments in October. The charges varied by defendant. Noah faced wire fraud, aggravated identity theft tied to my credentials, falsification connected to federal transportation records, obstruction, and conspiracy. Sloan faced wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, obstruction, false statements, and conspiracy related to the aircraft records and hazardous material shipment. Her father faced financial and aviation-related counts of his own. The indictment did not charge Sloan or Noah with causing the crash as if passengers were pilots. It described the conduct each had chosen: concealing the defect, evading the inspection, falsifying the trip, pressuring departure, loading undeclared batteries, and lying afterward. That precision made the case stronger. They could not hide behind the storm. Freezing rain was weather. Moving a defective aircraft to avoid an inspector was intent. Noah was arrested when he left a rehabilitation appointment. Photographs showed him standing on a new prosthetic leg between 2 federal agents. His mother screamed at reporters that I had ruined him. Sloan appeared in court on a medical stretcher, wearing a scarf across the lower half of her face. Her attorney argued that incarceration would interrupt essential treatment. The judge allowed home detention while she completed acute rehabilitation but prohibited internet access and contact with witnesses. For Sloan, losing the internet was almost a preview of death. Within a week, investigators reported that she had used a nurse's tablet to message Noah. "You take the aircraft charges, I'll say you handled logistics, my father will pay your defense." Noah turned the message over to prosecutors. The alliance ended there. He entered negotiations first. In exchange for a lower sentencing recommendation, he agreed to testify against Sloan and her father. His proffer filled 200 pages. He admitted the affair, the stolen project, the false signatures, the hidden batteries, and the plan to blame me, but cooperation did not turn him into a hero. The prosecutor explained that early when we met in Cleveland, a defendant can provide useful evidence and still be responsible. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rachel Singh said, "Mr. Grant's assistance may affect his sentence. It does not erase the conduct. Will I have to testify? Probably." "Good." Emily glanced at me. "You are allowed to dislike testifying. I do dislike it. I also want them to have to look at me." Rachel closed the file. "They may avoid looking, then they'll hear me." 000 Sloan's defense strategy was to turn the prosecution into a revenge story. Her attorney claimed I had created the decoy files to entrap an emotionally fragile classmate, manipulated the safety reporting system, and celebrated the crash as a chance to seize a company Sloan had built. He requested access to my therapy records. The judge denied it. he subpoenaed my private messages with Professor Ortiz. Emily narrowed the request to relevant dates. He argued that my statement to Noah, "We were over when you chose which woman got the oxygen mask," proved advanced knowledge of the crash. That sentence frightened me more than any other evidence. There was no rational explanation for it. Emily and I sat in her office with the recording between us. "What did you mean?" she asked. I had spent months giving truthful answers that omitted the impossible. This one would not bend. "I dreamed it, before the crash." "Yes, exactly as it happened." "Not exactly. In the dream, I was on the plane." She watched me. "Maya, I need the answer you would give under oath." "That is the answer. Do you believe the dream predicted the crash?" "I believe I had a nightmare based on records and weather I already knew." "I also believe Noah had chosen Sloan long before any oxygen mask existed." Both statements were true. Emily played the full apartment recording. Before the oxygen mask sentence, I confronted Noah about his affair, the forged authorship, and his threat. After it, he asked what I meant, and I told him to leave. "Context helps," she said. "The government does not have to prove you lacked supernatural knowledge. The defense would have to connect that statement to an act of sabotage, and there is no sabotage. What if a jury thinks I wanted them dead? Wanting is not causing, and reporting the defect to the FAA is a strange way to ensure a crash." She leaned back. "The more important question is whether you can stay composed when Barton Klein asks if you were pleased. He will ask that, if the judge allows it." I thought of the wreck, Sloane's scarred face, Noah's empty trouser leg, Tyler and Camila alive because they had read the notice. I was relieved I wasn't on the plane. I was relieved the other students weren't on it. I was not pleased anyone was injured, and when they were expelled, I was pleased the university acted on evidence. When they were indicted, I was pleased the law applied to people who thought wealth exempted them. Emily smiled. "Keep those sentences." The trial began the following March in federal court in Cleveland. By then, Whitaker Holdings had removed Sloane's father as chief executive. Banks froze assets connected to the aviation scheme. The family sold its Napa property, 2 aircraft, and the lake house where Sloane had filmed half her social media content. Her medical expenses were substantial, but the larger losses came from civil suits, North Coast employees, the pilot's widow, and the 4 students who had been pressured to fly all filed claims. The aircraft insurer denied coverage based on material misrepresentation and intentional concealment. Money had once insulated Sloane from consequences. Now every layer of insulation became another asset listed in court. The government called the information security analyst first. He traced Noah's login to my account and showed the jury the altered recovery email. Dr. Shaw explained invention records. Professor Ortiz explained Ember Trace. Camila testified that Sloane had called the maintenance warning, Maya's poverty panic, and offered each student $2,000 in travel ambassador stipends if they boarded anyway. The FAA inspector testified that when he reached Burke Lakefront, the aircraft was gone. Airport records showed Noah had requested the move 43 minutes after learning an inspection was coming. Then Noah testified. He entered the courtroom using a cane. His suit fit poorly around the prosthesis. For a moment, he looked like the boy who had once waited outside my calculus exam with coffee and a handwritten sign. That boy had existed, so had the man who used my name to hide dangerous cargo. One did not cancel the other. Noah told the jury Sloane offered him 20% of the future company if he transferred control. He described their affair as part manipulation, part ambition. He admitted that when I reported the aircraft, he panicked because an inspection would expose the false grant expenses. Whose idea was it to move the plane? Rachel asked. Mine, he said. Sloane turned toward him. Who asked Calvin Rusk to describe the flight as personal? I did. Who loaded the batteries? I did. Did Maya Bennett authorize any of those actions? No. Did she warn you the university and insurer had suspended the flight? Yes. Why did you tell the reporter she had warned no one? His hand tightened on the cane. I thought if people blamed her, they might not look at what I had done. There was no dramatic gasp. Real courtrooms do not perform on cue, but I heard Sloane whisper something to her lawyer that sounded like coward. On cross-examination, Barton made Noah admit he wanted a reduced sentence. He emphasized every lie Noah had told. It worked, but not the way Sloane hoped. The more Barton proved Noah was a liar, the clearer it became that Sloane had selected a liar to help steal my work. The government supported his testimony with messages, records, video, and the cockpit recording. It did not ask the jury to trust Noah, it asked them to compare him with evidence. Then I took the stand. Rachel led me through Ember Trace, the account theft, the maintenance invoice, and my reports. Did you personally tell Ms. Whitaker the insurer and university had suspended the flight? Yes. How did she respond? She said her father did not need permission to use his own plane. What did you do after recognizing the new airport? I updated the FAA with the location and called the Flight Standards Office. Did you alter the aircraft? No. Did you ask anyone to alter it? No. Did you place the high-capacity batteries in the equipment case? No. Why did you change your flight? Because I believed the aircraft was unsafe. Why didn't you board to persuade them? Barton objected. The judge overruled. I looked at the jury. Because safety does not require a victim, I reported the risk to the people authorized to stop the flight. 4 students read the documents and withdrew. Sloan and Noah read the same documents and moved the aircraft to escape inspection. I was not required to put my body on that plane to prove my warning was sincere. Rachel sat down. Barton approached for cross-examination. He began politely, which Emily had warned me was more dangerous than anger. Ms. Bennett, you disliked Sloan Whitaker. By the time of the flight, yes, you knew she was having a relationship with your boyfriend. I discovered it before departure. You believed she stole your life's work. The university and competition concluded she did. Please answer. What you believed, yes, and you left her a defective project. No, I left an older functional version in a shared folder. The source metadata accurately identified its limitations. You expected her to take it. I expected her unauthorized access to continue. You wanted to humiliate her before the judges. I wanted the judges to distinguish presentation from knowledge. He displayed the transcript of my call from Boston. When Ms. Whitaker told you she was taxiing, did you say, stop? The aircraft may crash? No. Did you say, the de-icing system may fail? Not on that call. Did you say, please get off? No. Why not? Because she already had the maintenance invoice, the university prohibition, the insurance suspension, and my statement that the trip had been suspended. She had spent 2 days calling the warning sabotage. Repeating it in more emotional language would not create new information. He walked closer. The truth is, you wanted her to suffer. Emily's question returned. Could I remain composed? I wanted her stopped. That wasn't my question. After she stole my invention, forged my withdrawal, planned to frame me for illegal batteries, and tried to put me on an unsafe aircraft, I did not wish her success. Were you pleased when the plane crashed? The prosecutor objected. The judge allowed a limited answer. I was relieved I was not on it. I was relieved 4 innocent students were not on it. I was horrified anyone was hurt, but you were pleased when Ms. Whitaker was expelled. I was pleased the university acted on evidence, and when she was indicted, I was pleased the law applied to someone who believed her family's money placed her above it. Barton changed slides. My recorded words filled the screen. We were over when you chose which woman got the oxygen mask. You said this before the crash. Explain that to the jury. I had rehearsed the truth until it no longer sounded like a confession. I had a nightmare after reading the maintenance record and discovering their affair. In the dream, Noah chose Sloan during an emergency, a remarkably accurate nightmare. In reality, there were no deployed oxygen masks. The NTSB evidence shows the plane remained below the altitude at which supplemental oxygen would have been required. That detail mattered. My death memory and this crash were not identical. The changed departure time and route had kept the aircraft lower. The sentence was strange, not predictive. You expect this jury to believe you dreamed a plane crash. I expect them to review what I did while awake. I filed a report designed to prevent one. Barton had nowhere useful to go after that. The government's final evidence was the cockpit recording. Sloan listened to her own voice threaten Calvin Rusk's business if he turned back. The recording ended with the stall warning. For once, no publicist could edit what came next. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They found Sloan guilty on every count submitted to them. Her father was convicted on most of his counts in a separate proceeding. Noah's plea remained in place. Sloan did not scream or collapse. She sat rigidly beside her lawyer while the clerk read each verdict. Only after the jury left did she look at me. Her scars pulled one side of her mouth downward. Her visible eye held the same hatred I had seen across the cabin in my first life. You took everything, she said. A deputy moved between us. I answered anyway. No, I stopped you from keeping what you stole. 000 sentencing took place 3 months later. Noah went first. His cooperation reduced the government's recommendation, but the judge emphasized that he had initiated the airport move, falsified my signature, loaded the batteries, and lied publicly while I received death threats. His injury did not erase his capacity to understand those choices. Before sentence was imposed, he turned toward me. Maya, I'm sorry. His mother sobbed behind him. I felt no triumph and no love, only distance. The court sentenced him to a substantial federal term, followed by supervised release, and ordered restitution jointly with the other defendants. he would receive medical care in custody, his prosthetic leg did not become freedom, and prison did not become cruelty simply because he entered it injured. Sloane's sentencing drew more reporters. Her attorney submitted medical records, character letters, childhood photographs, and a video about her rehabilitation. They asked for home confinement. The prosecution submitted victim statements. Camila described weeks of panic after learning she had almost boarded. The pilot's widow described discovering that North Coast's fraudulent maintenance had been financed through Whitaker companies. Professor Ortiz described the damage to student trust. Then I stood. Sloane did not make one mistake, I said. She built a system in which every consequence belonged to someone else. My work became her invention, my signature became her permission, my equipment case became her hiding place. My safety report became her persecution. When the plane crashed, my survival became her evidence of sabotage. She asks the court to treat her injuries as payment for her crimes. They are not. Her injuries came from a crash. The crimes harmed people before the aircraft took off and continued after it fell. Mercy belongs to the court. My silence does not. Sloane watched me without blinking. The judge imposed a lengthy prison sentence but allowed a short delay so the Bureau of Prisons could arrange an appropriate medical placement. He ordered restitution and forfeiture of proceeds tied to the fraud. Outside the courthouse, Margaret Whitaker stood behind a barricade. She did not ask me for mercy again. Sloane's prison transport departed 2 months later from a rehabilitation facility. There was no ring light, no prepared statement, and no family aircraft. Her final public image showed a government van reflected in hospital glass. Noah and Sloane served their sentences in different states. They never spoke to each other again. 000 The NTSB released its final report 18 months after the crash. Its language was clinical. The probable cause was the pilot's decision to depart into known icing conditions with an unairworthy de-icing system, followed by loss of control due to asymmetric ice accumulation. Contributing factors included falsified maintenance records, commercial pressure, passenger interference with the pilot's diversion decision, and inadequate operational oversight. The report noted the undeclared batteries as a factor in the post-impact fire, not the loss of control. It noted that the FAA had received a timely safety complaint and that the aircraft had been moved before the scheduled inspection. It did not mention fate. It did not mention revenge. It did not need to. Facts were enough. Lakefront University adopted a new independent approval process for donor-provided travel. No dean could waive a safety suspension alone. Student inventors received direct notifications when authorship records changed. Competition credentials required multi-factor authentication. The renamed Entrepreneurship Center opened an office for research credit disputes. Dean Talbot resigned before the board completed its review. Emails showed he had tried to classify the charter as personal travel to protect the Whitaker pledge. He was not criminally charged, but other universities could read news. His career narrowed to consulting work that did not involve students. The Whitaker name came off the building on a cold Monday morning. I watched workers lower the letters with Professor Ortiz. "Do you want your name up there?" she asked. "Absolutely not." Good answer. The building became the center for student innovation. Plain, almost boring. I loved it. Embertrace entered pilot programs in 3 western counties. The first deployment was not dramatic. A controlled burn crossed a containment line in eastern Oregon, and our model detected the wind shift 94 seconds before the county's previous tool. Crews repositioned. No homes were lost. That small success meant more than the competition trophy. I used part of the prize money to create the Bennett Fund for Student Authorship. It paid for independent legal consultations, secure repository tools, and emergency support for students facing retaliation after reporting misconduct. The first recipient was a nursing student whose faculty supervisor had submitted her rural health research without her name. When the paper was corrected, she sent me a message. I thought no one would believe me because he was important. I wrote back, "Importance is not evidence. Keep your records." My mother moved from her aging trailer into a small house with a metal roof and 2 evacuation routes. She kept the original laundry basket by the front door. Even after I bought her fireproof document boxes, "The basket got us out once," she said. Don't disrespect experience. I did not tell her experience had gotten me out. Twice. Therapy helped, so did time. I learned the difference between vigilance and imprisonment. I stopped checking every aircraft tail number. I could sit beneath an air vent without hearing the stall warning. I could smell peppermint without seeing Noah's face above a falling oxygen mask. I did not forgive him. Healing did not require revising the truth into kindness. 2 years after the crash, I flew from Cleveland to Sacramento for Embertrace's largest field trial. At the gate, a storm delayed boarding. The old fear rose quickly. My palms dampened. For one irrational moment, Every changed departure time felt like a message from death. I opened the airline's safety notice. I checked the weather once, not 17 times. I watched the crew conduct their inspection, then I boarded. My seat was beside the right wing, just as it had been on the morning I escaped. A college student sat beside me, struggling to fit a poster tube beneath the seat. Competition? I asked. Environmental design conference, she said. My team lead forgot to list me on the poster, so I printed a corrected one. She showed me the poster. Her name appeared in the second line, slightly crooked where she had replaced the original. Good, I said. He told me I was making things awkward. People call evidence awkward when comfort depends on your silence. She smiled and secured the tube. The aircraft pushed back across the runway. A private turboprop waited outside a hangar, white fuselage, dark stripe, 4A. Moment, memory placed a gold W on its tail. I saw Sloan lifting my equipment case. I saw Noah turning away. I saw the world fill with white. Then the plane beside us moved, and the image broke. My phone contained no threats, no stolen account alerts, and no messages asking where I was. Ember Trace belonged to me in every record that mattered. The 4 students who once died beside me had graduated. Camila worked for a federal climate office. Tyler designed medical sensors. June taught robotics in Cleveland Public Schools. Ben had become a pilot and sent me photographs from every safe landing. They never knew they had lived twice. That knowledge was mine to carry. The engines gathered power. I thought about the question people had asked after the crash. How could you let them go? The question had always contained another belief, that I was responsible for standing between powerful people and every consequence they chose. That my courage was measured by how often I sacrificed myself for those who would never do the same. I rejected that measure, had not cut the de-icing boot, I had not falsified the inspection, I had not moved the aircraft, I had not loaded the batteries, pressured the pilot, stolen the project, forged the signature, or published the lie. I had reported the danger, I had protected the innocent, and when Sloan and Noah demanded one last chance to use my body as a shield, I had stepped aside. The jet lifted through the clouds, sunlight spread across the wing. In my first life, I died in a seat someone else chose after surrendering an invention someone else named. In this life, I chose the flight, the work, the destination, and the name attached to all of it. Maya Bennett, sole inventor, survivor, not their warning system, not their alibi, not their sacrifice. For the first time in either life, the sky ahead belonged to me. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.